Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we have a brand new Beasts of the Mesozoic Ceratopsion Series figure to take a look at. Yes, the Tyrannosaur series as well as some of the Ceratopsion series have begun shipping from the Creative Beast Studio warehouse, and obviously I have the brand new Pachyrhinosaurus, and this is a fan's choice version based on the Walking with Dinosaurs, the 3D movie version of the Pachyrhinosaurus. I think it's based on Scowler, but I could be wrong. I can't exactly remember which Pachyrhinosaurus specifically that this paint scheme is based on, but it is definitely from the Walking with Dinosaurs, the 3D movie version of the Pachyrhinosaurus. But you can see as far as the box art goes, it looks really quite nice. Of course, we have our nice window area here to get a look at the figure itself, and some really nice looking artwork over here showing off the Pachyrhinosaurus, and of course the species name and the Beasts of the Mesozoic logo up there, also stating that this is the fan's choice color variant of the figure. And then up here on the top, you can again see Beasts of the Mesozoic, even though it's upside down. There we go. Now you can see it the correct way. Fan's choice, Beasts of the Mesozoic, adult collectible. And then, of course, the fact that we have 20 points of articulation, realistic movement and detail, and a profile card included. And then here on the back, you can again see a sneak peek of the card itself, as well as some information on the dinosaur right there. And a checklist here to show us the different variations of Fan's Choice Ceratopsians that are out currently, one of which we can see right here. I'm not sure if we can get this over all the way. You can kind of see it right back there. We have the Medusa Ceratops, which I have reviewed here in the past, the Pachyrhinosaurus, which I'm about to review, the Torosaurus, which will be up very soon, and the Styracosaurus, the old buck version, which will also be up fairly soon once it actually is, ready to ship, because that one is not part of the current wave of Ceratopsians that are available, are shipping. That is still a pre-ordered item. But I'm beyond psyched to see this, because I think I'm going to like this one potentially better than the original version, so let's pop it out of the box right now. So first of all, we've got the tail assembly instructions, which is always very important to pay attention to. The tails are at times extremely stiff. You usually always need to do this to try to get the tail on. Sometimes you'll get lucky. Not a good idea to try to force it. You could break the figure, and it's so much easier to just do it this way. And on top of that, you also have the card, the collectible card that comes with your Ceratopsian figure. You can see that, again, same image of the artwork that we saw on the front, which is gorgeous. And then the back of the card, which has the Pachyrhinosaurus name. Of course, some dinosaur toy photography, as well as information about the dinosaur on top of everything. Love the addition of these cards. And then we have our Pachyrhinosaurus itself. And I can tell you positively it is worth double dipping to get yourself this version of the Pachyrhinosaurus as well. If you have the first one, this is a great second option, and it's a great second addition to your Pachyrhinosaurus herd, because the paint job on this is really nice looking in person. Like, they definitely did a great job of just capturing so much color in probably one of the flashiest ways possible on this Pachyrhinosaurus, and it looks so good here in hand. This is probably one that I was, I don't know if I would say the second most exciting. The most exciting one that I was most hyped for was definitely the Medusa Ceratops, but the second place winner would probably be the Torosaurus, which we will have up on the channel very soon. However, this was a very close third, and I just really liked the pattern that was chosen for it. I liked how flashy it was, but at the same time, potentially naturalistic. And they definitely did a very good job on the actual application of the paint on top of the incredible paint scheme. And even though it is based on the Walking with Dinosaurs Pachyrhinosaurus, I could see a lot of Creative Beast creativity in this, where they kind of, added their own little touch to the figure. And it looks really good, again, here in person. So let's go ahead and jump straight to a closer look at it right now. Now, as far as this Pachyrhinosaurus goes, we have actually reviewed the sculpt of this with the initial version, unlike the upcoming Styracosaurus, where they did actually, resculpt some stuff and, change it up a bit compared to the original release. This one is the same sculpt as far as I'm aware. I don't notice anything different sculpt-wise, and to my knowledge, I don't believe there is anything different between the original version and this version sculpt-wise. So what we really need to take a look at would just be the paint application, because that would really be the only thing new on the figure. And you can straight away just see so much color in the face of this Pachyrhinosaurus, and they've done a very good job of highlighting the areas of color on the face with different, dry brushing techniques and stuff. Like specifically right here, I really love how that green is applied and allows that yellow to kind of creep through each and every scale in a really nice, realistic, and natural way. And that same thing happens here right in front of it, where you have those kind of reddish tones, and they've been dry brushed over where you can still see the yellowish tones underneath. And then up here, as you move into the upper part of the head, you see variations of reds, you see blues, you've got yellows, you have darker reds, you also have this nice black that leads back here and circles around the eye, also stripes down and then leads up toward the frill. You can see a little bit more black leading down here. So tons of color variation throughout the face of the Pachyrhinosaurus. I can also almost notice like some orangish tones as well. So just a lot of really, really beautiful coloration. The eye as well is painted with a yellow, giving it black pupil, and it is glossed to perfection. Really looks very, very lifelike, and I think the coloration stands out really nicely, of course, because we have that darker tone there around the eye, and it absolutely pops there really nicely on that head sculpt. You can see the beak is painted with some nice dark tones, almost looks like a mixture of browns and very dark greens, and potentially maybe even some grays. It looks really cool, and it's also nice to have a bit of variation of color in the beak, and there is a nice kind of a satin finish to the beak, so it shines quite nicely. We do, of course, have an articulated jaw, because you have lots of articulation on your ceratopsian figures. And you can see kind of that we have a nice dark pink for the inside of the mouth as far as the tones of color that we have in there. You can also see the teeth painted back there. You're not really going to see the teeth on the upper side though currently, because the tongue articulates and the tongue is up there in our way. I don't know if I can get that down. Maybe I can try to... There we go. We pushed it down with a pen, so now the tongue's out of our way. You can see the tongue down now in the mouth a little bit further. But you can also see slightly right there, you can pick out the teeth on the inside of the mouth and the upper side, which are painted. And everything has a nice glossy look on the inside of the mouth. You can really see that gloss coat shining on the tongue right there. And then, of course, as you lead up here into the trademark area of our Pachyrhinosaurus, you can see that we have a nice dark wash that's been applied, as well as a nice light dry brushing to this area, which really, really makes that area pop beautifully, especially just having so much, color variation up here on the top of the Pachyrhinosaurus. It looks really, really good, and they definitely did a great job as far as highlighting that area. Get that mouth closed. As far as highlighting the area up here on the top of the head. As you lead back here toward the frill, you pick up on some variations of browns. You can kind of see a nice variation of brown kind of creeping through the scales there, but you have a darker brown that seems to have been dry brushed over. Same deal with the little horns right here on the top of the head. As far as variation of color, you have a nice gray, but it looks like they've dry brushed over some blacks, really, really making that area look quite lifelike. And then you've got this really neat design in the frill with some reds, yellows, whites, orangish tones, so a whole bunch of color right here, and a pretty cool design for the frill of the Pachyrhinosaurus. You've also got some scoots moving up here along the course of the frill that are painted with a black and then also dry brushed over with some grays. And you have more variation of color kind of leaking off the outer edge of the frill of the ceratopsian, as well as the spikes leading around painted with the same similar gray that we see, here and up here on the top of the head. So that also looks quite nice. As you lead up here to the top of the frill, you can see that we have some black kind of going up there and designing around the outer edge of the frill, and the horns and everything up here are painted just like you see up here on the top of the head, again with those variations of grays and the nice black dry brushing. If we take a look at the opposing side of the head, you can again see just how wonderful of a job they did when it comes to the paintwork. Like, there is just so much color on the face of this Pachyrhinosaurus. It is just insane how much color we have. Like, every area you look, there are at least 2 to 3 different tones of color. No matter which section of the frill you look, you are just encountering color after color after color, giving it such an incredibly flashy look. But again, potentially a realistic look. We really don't know if ceratopsians could sport such bright and beautiful colors, and there's no reason to believe that they couldn't, so this could in fact be the coloration of a Pachyrhinosaurus. As you lead back into the neck, you could see some nice black tones here moving along. You also have some variations of oranges and browns kind of mixed together right there. Some more blacks kind of designing here around the neck. You can also see some more variations of like orangish tones and yellowish tones here for the underside of the throat. Those brighter yellows do transition to a bit more of a pale coloration as you move down here into the underside. But what's cool about this is even within those light tones, you can kind of see greens creeping through, and those greens show up a little bit nicer as you move up here into these stripes leading up into the stomach. You can really pick up on those greens a little bit better. You can also see some variations of reds, again, more of these orangish browns, some more blacks. Like I said, just color absolutely everywhere on this. And you can see the color transition, again, as you move up. You have these nice orangish brown tones, but then you also have some slightly different shades of like brownish tones. You've got more black kind of splotching all over the place. Some variations of browns moving through here as well. And then as you lead up here, you've got more of the black overtaking the majority of the upper part of the front leg. And then as you move down, you again pull out some more of these orangish brown tones, and then actually they're more of just like a lighter brown. We have the orangish brown here, kind of a lighter brown here, and then as you move down, you transition to a lighter tone. But even in those lighter tones, you can again see variations of like greenish tints and some somewhat orangish colors. Just again, color for days on this ceratopsian. You've also got some nicely painted nails with a black, which looks really good. And then as you lead up here toward the top of the Pachyrhinosaurus, you again have some more lighter tones, kind of like some light oranges, but you can also see that we have the green. It might be a little hard to pick up on, but you have the greens kind of creeping through those scales as well. You have this really neat reddish striping that runs along the neck, kind of starts out with a longer striping and then turns into a little bit of a sharper sort of a striping as you move along the back of the ceratopsian. Then the tone of color changes completely to more of a brownish tone leading out there. You've got some more black kind of splotching over the top of the hip as you move down here. You have a little bit of a darker shade of color as it lightens quite nicely as it moves down the course of the leg. Again, more of the black kind of splotching all through the course of the leg. And then as you move down, you can again see that we run down with these hints of like an orangish brown moving down into the foot as the foot lightens quite nicely. And again, has those light tones, but still sporting some of those green colors on the underneath. And you can kind of see them like creeping through the toes right there. Then as you lead up, you can again see more variation of color moving out the length of the tail. You have more of this black, which also has some hints of browns within. Moving out the length of the tail, you also have lighter yellowish tones, again with the greens up here. And then as you move out here, you can see we transition to a green tip for the tail. The underside again just has that light tone, which is one of the more consistent areas as far as coloration goes, where it doesn't switch around so much as far as different tones of color on the underside. But the opposing side, of course, is going to have pretty much the same thing color-wise. We did start out actually on this side, but we didn't get to the body. We changed and switched to the other side for the body, but it looks pretty much the same over here as it just did on the initial side, which is nice and consistent with what we saw on the initial side. But man, that absolutely has to be one of the absolute most impressive paint jobs on any of the Ceratopsian series figures so far. Such a striking Pachyrhinosaurus. Then, of course, one of the big selling points of the Beasts of the Mesozoic would be the articulation, as it is a super articulated figure. You've got the articulated jaw, which we already saw. We also have a tongue on the inside of the mouth that articulates. You then have articulation right here as you move back from the head into the neck, which can go up, down, left, right. Now, a lot of my articulation is going to be really stiff, so you can't look at what I'm doing with the figure and then say, oh, well, it doesn't move too well. It's because it hasn't been worn in yet. These figures are almost always stiff straight out of the packaging, and it usually takes either heating up the joints to kind of smooth them out a little bit, or just playing with them will definitely wear them in and allow them to move a lot smoother. But they're always really stiff straight out of the packaging. And again, I haven't done anything aside from applying the tail, and I actually don't even think I've really moved the limbs around much at all. You also have a spot of articulation back here, which again can go up, it can go down, and left and right a little bit. You can also swivel these areas to get a nice little head tilt for your Pachyrhinosaurus. And then as you move back, you've got a nice spot of articulation right here, which is super smooth, shockingly. This is one area that's usually pretty stiff, would be the elbow. Oh, wow. It absolutely is very stiff, so it's not even moving at all right now. That, again, is not a sign that it won't move. I just need to heat that up. Same deal for the wrist. You can see the wrist can go up, down all over the place, swivel very nicely. It can actually swivel all the way around if you want to break the unfortunate wrist of your Ceratopsian. Then as you move back, you've got some midsection articulation right here, which again can go up, down, left, right, help to give you a little extra as far as posability. You then have the hip articulation. The knee is definitely not going to move. Oh, a little tiny bit, but it actually goes much better than that again once it's worn in and warmed up. And then you've got 2 more spots of articulation as you move down. That's moving a little bit. You can see giving you some nice positions for your ceratopsian to kind of move the ankle and stuff and, you know, create running poses, walking poses, whatever you choose. And then the tail would be the final piece of the puzzle as far as articulation, left, down, upright, all over the place. So, as per usual, tons of articulation for your ceratopsian. As far as a size goes, if you were looking at right around 15 3/4 inches, maybe closing in on 16 inches, or about 40.5 centimeters. And then for a height to the top of the frill, a little over 6.5 inches, or right around 16.5 centimeters roughly. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line next to our Pachyrhinosaurus, which you can see is very large. Now, I don't feel like we really need to do a whole lot of comparisons this time around because this is a figure we've had in the past. It's a figure we've already done comparisons with, and it's a figure that if you are a Beasts of the Mesozoic collector, you may already own as far as the initial version, but we will do one more comparison because I would like to see this with the original release. So, there are both variants of the Pachyrhinosaurus from the Beasts of the Mesozoic line. We have the original release, which is gorgeous, and we also have the brand new Fans' Choice version. And now looking at the two together, I honestly don't know which one I prefer. It's actually really hard to decide on that, but I will say it's actually pretty neat that you can kind of see the bluish tones in the face here, along with the same sort of bluish tones in the face on the older one, almost making them look like potentially they could kind of be part of the same group in a way, color-wise, because they at least have some similar tones, but the majority of the newer version, the Fans' Choice version, looks far different compared to the older one color-wise, but they do look super awesome together, I will say that, and I am beyond excited to actually have both versions now of the Pachyrhinosaurus from the Beasts of the Mesozoic line. So this brand new Fans' Choice version of the Creative Beast Studio Beasts of the Mesozoic Ceratopsian Series Pachyrhinosaurus is honestly just as gorgeous as the original one, maybe even a little bit better. It's really hard to tell, honestly. I can't decide if I like the older one better than this one because I usually like my ceratopsians to have kind of darker tones. I feel like the older one was almost perfect as far as like the coloration I would like to see, as it did have some nice elements of flashiness to it, but also had nice naturalistic tones, whereas this one is just over the top awesome as far as the coloration goes. There is just so much color on this. I think the Medusa Ceratops might be the only other Ceratopsian series release that could compete with this as far as the different tones of color. And I'm not even sure if that one could win because there's just so many different tones of color on this. It's actually quite crazy. The dinosaur basically transitions between colors the entire way through the figure, almost non-stop. It's like a roller coaster ride of colors through the course of this Pachyrhinosaurus. Now, I don't know if I would say this one looks quite as nice and natural as the older one, but I will say it looks super, super flashy in the coolest possible way. It definitely is one of the most appealing figures visually that I've seen in a long time, color-wise, and is absolutely the type of figure that not only will it stand out, it would really pop on your shelf because the colors of this aren't exactly what you normally see on a Ceratopsian, and that's what makes it just so striking overall. Of course, the sculpt is great. It's just as beautiful this time around as it was the initial time, and I don't think you'll ever find a bad sculpt from the Beasts of the Mesozoic. That's just something that's not going to happen. But the coloration of this, again, is the only real new aspect to it, and I think they actually knocked it straight out of the park as far as this one goes. The coloration is gorgeous. It's nice and naturally applied. It overall, again, may not be your most realistic looking coloration for a Ceratopsian, but it absolutely is one of the flashiest and coolest looking Ceratopsian figures I've ever seen. So if you are interested in picking this up, I will include a link in the description to where you can do that on the Creative Beast Studio website. So make sure you check that link. I absolutely recommend grabbing this brand new version of the Pachyrhinosaurus, and make sure you also like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.